I'm very excited about this. Joe from
Hello?
the UK. Hello. From the UK, who wants to have a discussion on faith in God. Now, I talk to a lot of people, and are you the person I've had the major interactions with, all the DMs and stuff, or are you someone else?
Yeah, that would be me.
Brilliant. That is brilliant. Thank you very, very much for calling in. I do appreciate it. I know we've had a bit of a back and forth. So we've got the wonderful Emma Thorne here, who's going to be joining me on taking your call. So take it away. This is a platform where we invite you to tell us what you believe, and we walk through that. So, take it as way. Tell us what convinced you that God exists.
Yeah. All right. I'm not going to ramble on too much because I have had a pretty wacky experience with God in my life. Sorry, I do apologise. I've never actually done, obviously, this talk show before, but
it's fine. It's fine. And I know we might have got a little bit heated at points on TikTok. We are really friendly. We are, we're friendly and we're welcoming. There's nothing to be nervous about. Please, just take it in your own time, and we'll respond when we feel it's appropriate.
And likewise, I apologise for my frustration on the TikToks. I'm, just figuring it all out as I go along. But so yeah, never believed in God at all. I weren't even interested. Never went to church until I was about 19. I started heavily abusing drugs, and obviously that period of my life is a little bit of a blur because of the damage that I'd done to my brain. But I had the topic of God came into conversation with me and a couple of my friends for a couple of weeks leading up until this night. And this is not, I hope I can say this I'm not going to specify which drug because I don't know if you can say that on the show, but I had a bad drug addiction and it was causing me problems with my health, abusing it every single day. And I had a very, very sort of weird spiritual experience where I thought I overdosed and I took a separate drug, which is sort of considered a psychedelic, strong amount. And I sort of lay down and died, basically. I died, and what I thought God was, what I experienced God to be, which I don't think that it's a man in the clouds or whatever. It was the energy of love came and surrounded me. My late nan, who I felt she was there, and I thought, this is so peaceful. And then I thought, holy crap, I'm dying and God is here right now. And then since then, I broke out of that trip and I went to rehab, got clean, and I connect with this thing as much as possible, whatever I know God to be, and I'm still figuring it out. I'm only young. I'm still sort of figuring it out as I go along. And this thing, whatever, I know this is a show that is atheist run, if I'm not wrong. Sorry if I'm wrong. But this thing, in my experience, I connect with it, and it does wonders in my life. It really does wonder. It puts things into play for me, which I never could have believed has happened. And my life has transformed tenfold, and I never could have done it on my own. Sorry for a bit of a ramble. I just wanted to.
No, it's fine. We just wanted to let you get your story out. Emma, have you got anything in response to what Joe said?
First of all, congratulations on getting clean, Joe. It's a very, very difficult thing to do and remarkable. And I think as much as I'm very happy for you to have this beautiful faith in this God that you've experienced, you need to make sure you give yourself a healthy dose of patting yourself on the back because you've done the hard work. It's a fairly common story in the conversion world of it's a fairly common story in the psychedelic drug world as well. I've experienced something, a spiritual kind of awakening. In my opinion, from my perspective, it's the human brain, the wonders of the human brain. Essentially, I think this is a beautiful story of you digging yourself out of your own problems. And I love that you describe the experience as wacky, because I love a wacky story. And I would say that this is a great example of the wacky experiences that can occur when your brain chemistry goes crazy with psychedelics. For me, I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it, where your personal experiences with God and spirituality are never going to translate to another human being because we've not been inside your brain. For me, you had a chemical experience. For you, you had a religious experience. The important thing is that it made your life better. And I don't really have any other thought.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Joe, I think one thing that you've said really stood out to me more than anything else, and that was when you said you died. Now, I think there's some confusion around near-death experiences, which is what I'm assuming you meant, that you had an NDE. Because a lot of people think that they died and came back from death. But in actual fact, we have no confirmed medical cases of anybody ever in history being legally dead and coming back.
No.
What happens is we have people coming back from brain death, and that's not being legally dead. That is essentially not being dead, because dying, it isn't just a light switch where you turn it on and off. It's a process where your body and the whole system begins to shut down. And in every case that has been, recorded and studied properly, what we found is that when people have been resuscitated, they haven't been resuscitated from legal death. They've been resuscitated from brain death. And what's been happening is this process of dying has been taking place. So there is still, as has been recorded, kind of glimpses of consciousnesses there. There is still people still experience things during this process. And then when they're resuscitated, they think they've been brought back from death. But it's actually not death, as we would kind of call death. It's actually the process of dying which has been stopped and reversed. So I think I'm not diminishing your experience. I fully believe that you've had the experience, but I think it's very, very important that we understand the difference. When someone says, like in your case, I was brought back from the dead, we're not talking about legal death, because that's never happened as far as we know.
I'm still here.
Yeah.
Because I'm still here, obviously, so I can't have died. But I'm wondering, have you ever, has anyone ever come onto the show and talked about the experience of, because obviously the chemical, or very similar chemical to dimethyltryptamine, is released in the brain when you die. Yeah. Has anyone ever come onto the show and talked about the experiences of, like, because I've never done it, but people having that experience with, the toad's venom, and having that dimethyltryptamine experience where they feel like they do have that brain death and say the same sort of thing? Is that sort of similar?
It's funny you should say that. Because I have a paper in front of me, which is called Classic Hallucinogens and Mystical Experiences, Phenomenology and Neurocorrelates from 2018 by the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences and Neurosciences at Johns Hopkins University. And the person who sent me this study, I'm going to call them out, is called Jimmy, and he claims to hail from Texas when he has called every single call-in show going. Every single host on every single call-in show going, apart from moi. He refuses to call and talk to me. And the reason I believe he refuses and calls to talk to me is because he offered me this paper as evidence that there is a God that people can experience when they take huge quantities of DMT. And I ripped this paper apart, and he has refused to call in and talk to me for 5 years. I have been trying to get him to call in and talk to me. The lady who does our after shows, who facilitates our after shows over on Discord, she has been present when I have been inviting him in to call, and he has point blank refused to call in. He just won't talk to me. He won't do it. This is very interesting.
The reason I feel like I called in is because I feel like, after we've gone back and forth on the old TikTok and stuff, I feel like my views can get, and yours as well, could get, some misconceptions over text messages. So I thought like I'd do it out of respect to just phone you and clear up the confusion. Because at the end of the day, it's one of them things, it's life, innit? Like sometimes you believe something and someone else will believe another thing. And your paths will just never cross in that sense, that you'll never, and I respect the fact that you call me out on my TikToks, and I know I've apologized again. I've got a bit frustrated in the past.
It happens. Don't worry about it. It happens.
I got to say though, I swear on everything, right? I did not filter your comments on my page.
If anyone goes onto my TikTok page, they will see a little picture of me doing something like that, and the private message that Joe sent me saying, "I promise, mate, I didn't delete your things. I didn't delete your comments. Don't worry about it. It's water under the bridge, and I appreciate you calling."
It's like class as offensive for some reason. I don't know. I think. No, I'll tell you what it was. It's because I got so frustrated at you that I blocked you, but then I thought it was so interesting that I unblocked you. So you must have got in my head that much that I unblocked you, and it's probably because of that.
Listen, mate, don't worry about it. I genuinely appreciate you calling. I do want to get back to this mystical experience state, because I have done a lot of studying this. My degree is in philosophy. It's partly in philosophy. It's in other stuff as well, religious studies and ethics, because it's a weird degree which just encompasses lots of things. But one of the kind of the things I'm most interested in philosophy, a personal passion of mine, is consciousness studies. So I've done a lot of stuff. I've been meditating for 20 plus years. So a lot of this stuff in this paper that was sent to me about these mystical experiences, I've actually experienced. There's something which are called the kind of 6 dimensions of mysterious experience, mystical experience, which were put forward by a guy called Walter Stace. And they are sacredness, a noetic quality, deeply felt positive mood and joy, ineffability, paradoxicality, and the transcendence of time and space. And I'm sure that sounds very, very familiar to you, considering your own experience. I've experienced those definitely in meditation. I know I have a friend who is a Buddhist monk who was also addicted to drugs when he was younger. And he started practicing Buddhism, and he credits Buddhism as being the kind of power that pulled him through that and having those experiences. And he connects the Buddhist meditative experience with these experiences he had on drugs when he was on drugs. And I think there is certainly something going on. There's certainly something happening. The disconnect I have is when it's used to say, this is evidence or proof to me that God exists. And that's where the disconnect comes for me, because I've had these experiences myself. I do not believe that God exists. And on top of that, I know Muslims, I know Buddhists, I know Christians, I know Hindus who've also had these experiences and cite these experiences as evidence that their religion is true and that their God exists. Now, I'm sure you can see a problem here. And this is, when we were talking about in the early conversations we had on TikTok, when I was talking about why epistemology is so important, there is a major problem here. And that is, although these experiences may seem compelling, not all of those religions can be true because they contradict each other. So there has to be something that gives. There has to be something that gives. And what we can say at best is that, and this has been hugely generous, I think, is that one of the religions is true and the others are false, but that experience is not a good enough experience. It's not a good enough methodology to say which of those religions is true. And I think that's, for me, where the problem arises, because I can accept that you carry on. No,
sorry,
please carry on.
Are you saying, like, in that sense, let's say hypothetically, are you saying that, like, that if one of the religions was true, are you saying that they are, like, wholeheartedly true, like every part of the religion is true, or is it possible that there's some elements to each religion that is true and then some that have been fabricated over time and lost in translation?
That's a great question. That is actually a really, really good question. And this relates back to that paper I referenced earlier. So first of all, I don't think any of them are true. The only reason I brought it up that one of them may be true is that I'm kind of giving a kind of benefit of the doubt argument here just to present a point. I don't believe any of them true, but at best, being the most generous we can be, we could say that even if one of them was true, whether in whole or in part, having one of these experiences is not a good enough methodology to say this can be used as evidence or proof that this is true, because other people of alternative theories also claim this evidence as their religion. Now, that's one part of it. The other part of it, which I raised, was about this picking things up. There is a thing called perennial philosophy, and this is what this paper is actually about. And it talks about that very thing you've just mentioned, that there are common factors when people have these experiences, and we can take kind of little bits of, we can take these common factors and say this describes in an ultimate reality in which God is present, and there are other bits of the religion which we can kind of throw aside and ignore. And they actually talk about this in this paper. The problem with doing that is, it seems, having read this and other papers and spoken to people on this at length who believe this to be true, it seems that those common factors, those commonalities, are the things that they want them to be, to make their particular version of this perennial philosophy true. And they kind of dismiss lots of really, really important factors, like some cultural experiences, some personal experiences that don't fit in to this picture they have of this perennial philosophy. Now, that's all well and good, but it's not particularly a good methodology, because we know from speaking anthropologically, if that's how you say the word, from an anthropologist point of view, that where things like the way religions come about and the history and the lineage and the culture are all very, very important to informing these kind of experiences to begin with. So I think it's very difficult to say that on one hand, we're going to accept these mystical experiences that people have that are informed by the culture and the things, but at the same time, simultaneously, dismiss that stuff. And we have a very good, we have a very good record. We've got anthropologists and historians who've studied, like the Neolithic period was the period where organized religion and organized society and warfare all came to be a thing. It all happened in the Neolithic period. And this commonality happened throughout the world at slightly different times, but it happened throughout the world. And those cultural influences are influencing these experiences that people have. And I just don't think you can so easily separate the fact that on one hand it's cultural, but on the other hand, dismissing just the cultural aspects and accepting these bits which inform this mystical belief. I've spoken for a long time, Joe. Please respond to what I've said, then I'm going to let Emma jump in and respond to you.
No, I somewhat agree with that. I do actually agree with that. And, apologies for, I just want to say, apologies for my lack of knowledge on the subject, because like I said, I'm 21 now. I've only had what I believe is this connection with God for 2 years of my life. Sorry. And, I'd like to state as well, sorry, I don't have too much longer. I don't want to waste your time on nothing, but I just wanted to say, I'm not actually religious. I'm not religious. With religion, say the Christian religion, do I believe that, okay, if there was a God, would the God bring me onto this earth for there being a possibility of eternal damnation? Well, that is just crazy. That what even is that about? How is that even fair? And if I don't believe that Jesus Christ is Lord, then I'm going to hell. That's crazy. That's craziness. To me, that is insanity. What I do believe is that there is a source from my personal experience, source. Call it whatever you want. I'm currently studying the Master Key System by Charles F. Harnell. He calls it the universal mind or creator or whatever you want to call it. That is the only bit of where I'm at with my connection with, I call it God because it's easier to call it that way, and that's how people know it. But really and truly, again, I do apologize if I've gone off topic of what you've said and I've not responded entirely of what you said, because I apologize, but I haven't looked into the religions, quote unquote religions as such, quite frankly, because at this stage in my life, I'm not really that interested in researching them. I'm more interested in this connection that I have with this higher being, higher self, whatever you want to call it. For me personally, I feel that it's there. My life is tenfold better. The Master Key System says that we are all experiencing itself, which is a bit of a crazy one. I don't know what it is, but for me, I know that it's there. And I know I keep waffling on and saying this again. I do apologise that I've called up the show with such lack of knowledge on the subject.
I am so glad you've called, Joe. I really, really am. There's an old Buddhist joke that goes something like a guy walks up to a hot dog stand and the tender says, "What do you want?" And he says, "One with everything." Ha 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 ha. So yeah, look, it's great. I'm gonna if Emma doesn't die laughing, I'm gonna let Emma respond to you, and then we are gonna move on because we have got a couple of more calls to take. I just want to say thank you so much for calling. Keep making your TikTok videos. Keep going on your journey, and if you do want to call back and discuss any of your experiences, you are more than welcome to do so. Please do.
Thank you, Richard. It's good to talk to you, mate.
Emma?
Yeah, no, I think I basically said everything that I thought earlier. I'm just very happy for you on this journey. I mention fairly often, again, I reread the same books over and over again because I'm not a science brain and I have to, I forget everything. But I like reading about quantum physics and quantum mathematics, and I really like Carlo Rovelli, and he talks about this kind of preferred theory of quantum mechanics. I think it's called relational quantum mechanics, but the idea is that at its base level, everything only exists in relationship with each other. And I always feel the most, I guess you would call it, spiritually connected with everything, and the fact that technically, scientifically, it seems possible that everything is simply just one system that only exists in the way that we relate to each other. And for me, that doesn't inspire a kind of deity-like idea, but it gives me a sense of peace in a way, and I think that's a similar kind of experience. And it's just one of those things. It's a beautiful personal experience. We're never going to be able to fully appreciate each other's experiences because we're not in each other's brain. I'm just glad that I'm glad that you're well, and that you agree that certain ideas are a little bit kooky. I think we have a lot of ideas in common. So you keep on keeping on.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm going to let you go, mate. Thanks for calling in, and I'll no doubt speak to you soon.